Any business arising from the minutes? Being none, we have a report of closed meeting that was held June 11th. Information, and with that, I'll turn it over to Secretary Treasurer on our two presentations to the board. The first is His Worship the Mayor Merritt.
Right. So we have a mayor from Merritt, Michael Gertz, on the video, and he has a few words to share with us today. We'll go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, Michael.
You can't see me because they put a phone on my computer and now I can't see it. It's probably best that you can't see me anyway, so it's fine. I'm going to be just real quick here. I just want to let you know that I know you guys are in for a hard decision on this kind of thing. And what I'm asking is, you know, I'm not sure you can postpone anything like this till this time next year, but in Merritt right now, we are seeing quite a large influx of businesses coming to our community that potentially are going to be bringing in 200 to 300 jobs in the next 2 years. And that's just with the ones that we've already got established. That would be 286, the Mako project, and the Bell Center AI Center, plus a couple of other smaller ones that are coming in as well. And if we're talking about that many jobs coming to the community, even if half of those people have kids, that's 100 to 150 kids. And what I'm asking for, or what I'm letting you know is that we need some time to get these developments completed and running and people hired. And I know this period, I believe, Gordon, we had some information that it was like 12 to 14 months that you're going to be working on this. And what I would really like to do is also work with the board and council and board work together to see our OCP, our growth plan, our growth patterns, and kind of give you that information, because there might be a situation here where you may not have all the information that you're needing. And one of the reasons that I bring this up is because we are constantly being deluged with the fact that we do not have enough ball diamonds, we do not have enough lacrosse fields, and we do not have enough soccer fields for the kids that we have. So we're constantly looking for funds to build these, because most of these kids are stacked up in order to play. And these numbers don't seem to be dropping for us, and I'm just not sure how the numbering works, and I don't dare to question it. I just these are the things that I'm seeing.
No, we have no sound. Are you broadcasting?
Yeah.
Well, there we go.
Ashley can't hear us.
Yeah. Okay, good. You're good. Oh, both muted too.
Just hang on, Mike. We're just trying to get Merritt reattached.
No problem. Those Meritonian people are tough.
And I believe your executive assistant has reached out to us for a meeting November 4th, which we're looking forward to as well. In order to sit down with you and talk about those numbers, where your numbers are coming from.
Yeah, you bet, Gordon. And the fact is that, you know, closing a third school in the city is probably not the best idea. It's not the best for investment and all the rest of that kind of stuff. But you guys see these numbers, and I mean, we don't see these kind of numbers as we run through the city. So I think it's important that for the next 12 to 14 months that we really work together and get some information both back and forth, so we can make some, or you guys can make some decisions on this. And like I say, I know this is not going to be easy decisions for you, and I'm going to be as positive as I can be on this, and just extending the opportunity to let's work together, and we can get you some information that you can see, and you know, we can help you along this journey if we can. Yeah, that's about all I have for you. I'm not going to take up too much time. I know you have things to do, but what I'm saying is I mean, we can make the OCP available, and we can work hand in hand, and I hope we can. I hope this doesn't come about. I know people are a little unhappy about it, and I know that it's a 12 to 14 month process, and I know some of these meetings will be in Merritt, and appreciate the time that I was able to speak to you tonight, and hopefully we can all work together on this. So thank you, Gordon, and thank you, board.
If the motion passes tonight, it's about proposed closures, and under the act, it's very strict that we put that out first before we actually have the meeting, so that's why they haven't been set up. We did have in, I think you're aware, in the spring, parents asked us at the budget session, had we considered closing the school? We then had a notice of motion and a motion in the prior school year to put that forward. And then our bylaws were that we needed to put a public notice of motion forward 2 weeks before the board meeting if we were going to entertain a motion at the board table to start the discussion. So this is just the start of discussion. And as we talk to people in Merit, I can assure you, Mayor, there will be many meetings in Merit, many meetings with our rights holders before we get to any final decision to actually hear from the community, talk to the community about our numbers. I know right now we're sitting with, I think it's 98 kindergarten students with 168 grade 12. So we know that's part of the piece that we're looking at as we move forward. And we know we have 300 empty seats within our schools right now. So, but really it's the start of a conversation to see where we go. We know we've had parents ask us whether Collettville's the right location for French immersion, whether or not it should be built from that. So all of that, we're certainly going to be sitting down with the community. Motion tonight, if it passes, is just a procedural piece that allows us to start the conversation with the community. And when we talked to the ministry about, they said, no, you actually have to name a school. And so in naming Central originally, that was because it was our oldest school with about $4 million worth of work still to be done there. And so that's part of that. When we were just saying, you know, we were looking at the potential of a school, the ministry said, no, you actually have to name it in the proposal, which is why Central came up. But certainly we're going to be working with all the parents, meeting with all the schools, meeting with the city, meeting with our rights holders, just the beginning of the process. And thank you for your time tonight and working on behalf of your citizens.
Thank you, Gord. And like I say, I look forward to working with you on this and being, you know, learning more about the process. And, you know, I think if we all work together, I think we can make things happen. So again, I thank the board for the time. I appreciate it.
Audit financial statements, that would be areas. Jackson. Trustee Jackson.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we have the classroom and Merit. Know that it was kind of important that we included folks tonight, so I just want to make sure that they're actually here.
Phone work out and make sure they got sound.
Yeah, we tried the phone and she didn't answer, so I think she's probably working on it.
Natasha, are you okay? Can you hear?
We have sound now. Thank you.
So did you hear the discussion with the mayor as well, some of it? Natasha?
No.
We can do a summary.
The mayor was just talking to us about the process and wanting to make sure we're going to have meetings in Merit. We talked about the number of potential jobs coming to the community. Also talked about we're going to be having a meeting with them in November to look at their data and their numbers. And we also talked about the fact that right now we have 98 kindergarten students, but 168 grade 12s, which is part of that movement, and 300 empty seats within all our schools. But also assured him that there will be meetings, multiple meetings at Central, at Collettville, with our rights holders, which is our Indigenous communities. With the other schools, with schools in Princeton as well, because it affects the whole district, whatever decision was made. And the motion tonight is procedural in nature, just so we can start the discussions with the community. And the reason Central was listed originally, we were just talking about a potential school based on September or the spring, when parents asked us, have you considered closing school? And the ministry said, no, you actually have to name a school. And so we named our oldest school, which has the most work to be done in it. It's not a reflection on the students, the teaching there, I know it's fantastic. And it's just the start of, as I say, it's proposals, so we can start the discussion with the community on what our numbers look like, going into the future for our declining enrollment. I think most people from the budget are aware we're down 100 students over the last 5 years, which is about $1.6 million in funding we no longer receive from the ministry. And so how do we come to terms with that and make sure dollars are going to students and services as opposed to whichever building. So, and but that will come up in the discussion on the motion as well later this evening. And we'll now go to Mark and our BDO and our financials.
Okay, thank you. So on the screen, we have our auditor from BDO, Mario Parodi, and he's going to take us through our audit financial statements from this past year. So over to you, Mario.
Perfect. Thank you for having me. Sorry I couldn't be there in person in Princeton tonight. Before I get going, is it possible to be allowed to share my screen?
Yeah. Working on it.
Perfect. I see that now. Excellent. Okay, so on the screen here, we have the audited financial statements for school district number 58, Nicholas Milkmean, for the year ended June 30th, 2025. In preparing for the meeting and discussing how the presentation go with the Secretary Treasurer, you will be hearing from him later on more of your internally restricted and your surpluses through the FSD&A documents. So my comments are going to be a little bit more high level on the numbers than what I've done in the past, but that's just so that you don't have to hear us speak to the same thing twice again this year. But the financial statements that you have in your package are still marked draft because I cannot sign off the audit until those charged with governance, which is, and I just want to make sure, are you seeing the financial statements up on there?
Yeah, it says independent auditors report is showing.
Okay, perfect. It just, the screen share isn't showing that it was showing that one.
With the highlighted area in teal.
Perfect. So I can't sign off until those charged with governance, which through the School Act is the Board of Education has a chance to review and approve the financial statements. So this will be your chance to ask questions of me, not only of the statements, but of how we conducted our audit. And if it's the board's pleasure to approve the financial statements, we are issuing a clean audit opinion. So these statements do present fairly the results of school district number 58 in accordance with section 23.1 of the Budget Transparency and Accountability Act of the province of BC. So when we look at the financial results, just wanted to highlight a few of the items, and we can see here your first section on your financial assets. We saw a decrease in cash position of $2 million this year, and your overall financial assets decreased from 13.1 million to 11.6 million, so a drop of about $1.5 million. The flip side, though, which on the surface would look a little bit more alarming, is that your total liabilities increased from 38 million to 48.5 million, which would sense that you owe that money out. But I've highlighted two items here, and it's the deferred capital revenue that we'll speak to first. And if you recall last year when I presented, the deferred capital revenue is the money that you've received from the ministry previously that is being amortized or for capital projects that's being amortized into income over the life of the assets. So it's money that you will never have to pay back, but we have to show it as a liability. That increased this year from 29.7 million to 36.4 million. And that's because of the capital projects with the Riverside Learning Center. We know that the ministry funded it, so that's why that went up. So again, that first increase is not an obligation that we're going to have to repay. The second item that I've highlighted is your asset retirement obligations. And as a reminder, that number represents if you have hazardous materials in the school, like asbestos, that you have to remediate in the future, this is recognition that this is the liability that you would have to pay to remediate it. And again, that remediation would be funded by the ministry typically, so it's not really something that you're going to be obligated to settle on your own. But that increased by $3.2 million. And the reason why that happened is that the facilities had new studies done and brought that number up to current in terms of what the remediations are. So it's not that there's a bunch of new things that happen. We know what the cost of construction, the cost of inflation that's been going on. That's why that increase there. So again, the increase in your liabilities isn't really a cash increase. But if we take our financial assets and deduct our liabilities, we come to a net debt position on the statements of negative 37 million almost. And so I've marked up on here what if we ignore deferred capital and your asset retirement obligations, what that number would be. That's your true net financial position of assets less your obligations. And you decreased from 6.3 million last year to 4.2 million this year. So you're still in the black on that one. We did see a decrease, which I don't think would be a surprise given the reports that you've seen this year. But I just wanted to highlight that you aren't in a deficit of $37 million. And a reminder that as you continue to have capital projects, this net debt number is going to get worse every year. So it's important to remember the context of it. When we move forward to the statement of operations, and again, very high level, your total revenues this year came in at 41.2 million versus your amended budget, which projected at 40.9 million. So a $300,000 swing, nothing really significant there. On the expense side, your total expenses came in at 44.3 million versus a budget of $42.5 million. And I've highlighted your operations and maintenance because we're seeing it being overspent, $10 million versus 6.9 million. And that's where that change in your asset retirement obligation came in. So to increase the liability, we had to record the expense. If that were not in there, you would have actually been on track with your budget. So just wanted to highlight that you did not overspend on operations and maintenance by over $3 million. And because of the accounting and in particular with the asset retirement obligations, we showed a deficit this year of $3 million, nearly 3.1 million. And again, I drew an arrow down here and I wanted to highlight two items for you. The first is your operating fund was actually in a surplus of $409,000. And again, Secretary Treasurer will speak more to that during the FSD&A. Your overall surplus, though, if we ignored the impact of the asset retirement obligation for the reasons that we've talked about, would have been a $130,000 surplus for the year, not a deficit of $3.1 million. So I just wanted to make sure that we understand that we aren't hitting the panic over a $3 million deficit. Your real surplus number for all your funds would have been $130,000, and your surplus from operating, excluding special purpose and capital, would have been $400,000. So I'm going to stop there, and we're not going to go into the notes just to not repeat anything. But are there any questions on what I spoke about in terms of the numbers?
I'll start with Dave right here.
Hey, Mario, thank you. The AROs, can we expect, if nothing's done in the future, we're gonna have inflation and also increases of supplies on top of what is already there?
Yeah, that is correct. That number will continue to trend to go up. And I'm going to actually skip ahead to one of my comments from the management letter. And one of the issues and why we had such a big adjustment this year is because we're actually supposed to account for that every year, what we think the inflation adjustments are going to be. But the Ministry of Education has said, well, we don't want to do that. And so school districts haven't been doing it for the most part. Some are starting to now. That's against the accounting rules. And then we end up, all of a sudden we do a new study and we end up with this massive jump, which is why we want to be just incrementally doing it. And so we're recommending that you start to account for that increase year over year. And I'm going to be bringing this up with the Auditor General again through the committee that I sit on, that for next year, the ministry needs to give better guidance that aligns with the accounting rules.
Because as you know, like, we sometimes don't know what our funding is going to be, right, or what it's gonna cover, so. To go out 4 or 5 years for inflationary periods, it's really hard just to go out 1 or 2, I think, right?
Well, and the problem that you have and why the ministry's done this is that we don't know, are we going to remediate in 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, right? And so that's kind of the why. But it's also important to note that when you look at this, it's part of your long-term capital plan. And any remediation work is typically going to be when you do a renovation or a demolition. And so you'd be factoring these costs as you go into doing those projects and figuring out what the project cost will be, applying for the funding with the ministry. So it's all part of that overall process. It's just we're seeing it on the statements as a nice big number right now.
Thank you. Thanks for it.
I guess the other piece, I look at that, the two, Muriel, through our BC School Trustees Association this last year. We had motions around school district benefit costs that are unfunded. And so we're trying to figure out what that might look like into the future. Funding for cybersecurity, which currently isn't funded, and then year-end FT staffing costs. And we look at all of those and trying to project those out. This is the first year we haven't heard government necessarily say whatever is negotiated in negotiations, those costs will be fully funded. So those are some of those other cautionary pieces that we're looking at as we look at your numbers and what we should be putting aside for the future, knowing that there's a lot that we don't know.
No, absolutely. And I will state that this discussion I'm having at every board meeting that I've had so far this year, and we've seen it. We saw Surrey's projection with the $16 million deficit that they announced back in March was what they were projecting through the amended budget. And so especially, with the position that you're in with enrollment numbers and potential declining enrollments, I know the mayor is saying, okay, we're looking at potential increases in enrollments, but if your enrollment stays flat or is decreasing, it is a very large risk factor right now, the way the funding model is, and being able to project out where you're going to be, because a $400,000 surplus today means you will be in a deficit 3 to 4 years later if your enrollment remains flat or decreases, unless you start to take action now, which you are looking at right now. And so it's important to be proactive in doing it. And I have confidence that you are taking those steps and taking this seriously, which is why I didn't incorporate that in my earlier comments.
Yeah, we know with a drop of 100 students, that's about $1.6 million. We're no longer funded by the province. So
well, and
I would love to be Surrey with 2,500 kids coming in a year, but even with them, I know they got 18 million out of their budget because of their pressure. So.
But it's interesting.
Mariel.
Sorry,
go ahead, Mariel.
I was just going to say, and we actually had this conversation with the Secretary Treasurer and your Director of Finance. What people don't realize is that if you have a 10% drop in students, it doesn't mean that your costs decrease by 10%. Your funding might drop by 6% because of funding protection, as an example, but your cost might only decrease by 3% because it's not like that 10% of students filed perfectly that we can eliminate 10% of our teaching staff or 10% of our classrooms. And that's the part that isn't really spoken about, which is the main problem.
Other questions from Mariel? If not, I think it's great that we've had a clean audit this year. And I would entertain a motion to approve and sign the 2024-2025 audit financial statements. I'm thinking or finance. Oh. Yeah, sure. Might want it. Moved by trustee Rayner, seconded by trustee Kent Laidlaw. Any other discussion? Anyone opposed? I think I see John in that little screen that he's giving a thumbs up to. Thank you. That is carried. You're free to go, Mario. I know you probably would love to sit through our entire meeting, but if you have other things to do, by all means. And thank you for zooming in with us today, or Teams.
No, I appreciate that. I have to move on to an AGM for where I'm the treasurer now, but if there are any questions throughout the year or anything, please feel free to reach out through the secretary treasurer. We're here all year round to assist if you need it.
We missed two.